When many think about travel preparations, we instantly get a headache. Booking the correct flight, completing the paperwork, and ensuring necessary visas are up to date, all of this is often quite stressful. Well, luckily for us, Karen Warner is here to guide us through the air travel process. She assists clients at her business, Warner's Visa Services, with a variety of travel needs, including visa application processes. Welcome to Good Morning SKN.
Welcome, Karen. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
All right, so let's talk initially about your love for the industry. How did you get into it? What motivated you to do so?
Well, when I finished school, I always wanted to work in the travel industry. I wanted to travel. And so I started at Delisle Walwyn. They had a travel agency, and I started there at the tender age of 18. So I've been in the industry since my early years. I've worked in all areas. I've worked in traffic, which is at the airport, check-in operations. I've worked in reservations where I did car rentals, cruises, everything you could think about with travel. And I've seen the industry evolve from paper tickets to electronic tickets. So I've been in it quite a long time.
So then evolving into Warner's services makes sense then for you having that depth as well.
Yes.
All right.
So how did you first come to learn about the visa and the travel services?
Well, I've been doing visas maybe over 10 years, because remember at first we didn't really, everybody did their application by hand, and then it evolved as well, you know, as technology has evolved. We've also evolved our travel related services. So they created the form that you do online, and so I started, you know, filling out forms for family and friends, and then it evolved into something where you would pay for the service.
Okay.
All right. And speaking to the services that Warner's Visa Services offers, what can you tell us? What are those services coming from you?
Okay, my services include visa applications, the ESTA form, the ETA form. I also provide travel-related services, for instance, car rentals. I also assist in persons who need accommodations to travel for their visa and flights. So I try to do everything as a package for persons so it would be easier and smoother for them.
Nice. Could you explain the ETA?
The ETA is actually an electronic travel authorization form. It's really for persons who are part of the visa waiver program. Those are countries like France, England, you know. Yes, and you have to complete a form in order to enter the US. Even though you don't have to have a visa, you have to complete a form, so you have to notify them, and that has also grown to practically as long as a visa, because they ask you so many questions that they never did before. It was very short. Now they ask you social media information, you know, things like that, and they're tracking you.
Yes, they're real checking to ensure that you're a good person.
Yes.
Okay. Nice.
That is so very interesting and alarming at the same time. Luckily, you're on the job, right?
I know.
That's good to know. All right, so let's talk about this, because when we talk about visas, I think the default for a lot of us here in the Federation is to think U.S. visa. But that's not the only visa that we need because we're traveling internationally. So what can you tell us about that?
I also do the Canadian. Well, I specialize in U.S. and Canadian. I've done U.K. visa, but you know, we don't need a visa. Think it's Nevis passport holders do not need a visa for the U.K. So I've not had a lot of requests for that, but I've had a few. And I actually just did one like last week for the first time. So I really just specialize in the US and in Canada. Those are the ones that I'm more familiar with. But I'll also wet my foot and try and assist persons who may need other countries' visas, but I would need some time to read upon it, you know, and check on the information they would need and stuff like that.
Right.
So I have a question to ask. You have a normal visa with years on it. You got married. You changed your name. You decided to change your name because somebody else might be watching that might have to go through the same thing. So maybe you can help them out. They can come sort themselves out. You traveled all the documentation, including your marriage certificate. But then when you get to the counter, you're told America doesn't want you because your visa is in one name and your new passport, because your old passport that is expires now, in your married name. How does one deal with an issue like that?
Well, the issue like that, it's really up to the agent who is checking you in. I mean, I can just give you advice, which is there's nothing like that. You can travel with your supporting documents, which show that your name has been changed. Once you have all of those, the U.S. will accept you. However, in a case like that, it's really up to the agents at the airport and their discretion. But that is not something that I have ever experienced where someone has been hindered because the visa is in one name once they had supporting documents. Once you have that, you're allowed in. They will just make sure that you are who you say you are, you have everything, and they stamp you and you're on your way.
Okay. So for somebody else that might go through that, there's your lady you can speak to just in case.
I'll have to look for something and see if I can find something in writing and give you so that you can be able to use it for future travel.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
All right, well, that matter is resolved, at least in part. At least in part, right? So we're grateful for that.
In part, indeed. Thank you so much, Karen, for that.
All right, so Karen, let's talk a little bit about the travel-related services that you provide. What are they?
Well, as I said, I also assist in accommodations, more so in Barbados, because when persons go there, sometimes they don't really have a place to stay. So I have an associate there who I've been using for years, who would provide transportation. He provides accommodations. If something happens to you there, I can always call him and tell him, go and look. Even if you didn't really book with me, but once I have the information, I'm able to contact him and have him rescue the person if need be. You know, things like that. But it's good to have partnerships in the other islands, and that is a really good partner that I have there.
So is that your most popular service amongst your clients, you would say, Barbados?
Yes.
Okay, good stuff.
U.S. visa.
Oh, nice, nice. Everybody wants to...
Everybody wants to go to the U.S.
And some of us made it.
You know,
I'm just making a light of it.
That's okay. What exactly is the United States electronic system for travel authorization?
that's the form that persons who
long form.
are part of the visa waiver program, they complete that form in order to enter the U.S. So it captures their information. You can upload your passport, you know, things like that. And it's actually something that has to be done prior to travel, because it takes up to 3 days before you can get a response. But it can also take like an hour to get a response, but you have to have the approval. And also, we've also had instances where persons who usually get that, they've been filling it out for years, getting through. It's also valid for only 2 years. And all of a sudden it tells you, you must apply for a visa. I've had someone who had to do that. I mean, he applied all the time. He never overstayed, never violated any of his, you know, his time there. And he got the response that he must apply for a visa. He went for the visa and they turned him down.
So would you say there is a flaw in the system somewhat, or you're not at liberty to say?
I can't say if it's a flaw or whatever it is, but there has to be a reason why it would have told him that. I don't know. It could be the frequency of your travel. If you've been traveling pretty often, they kind of flag you, and then they work out, you know, something going on. We want to interview you and meet you and look you in the eye. You know, things like that. So it's something that you can never predict what will happen.
So if a person's needing an ESTA, would you recommend they visit you a week before, and is there a cost attached to obtaining an ESTA?
Yes, there's a cost attached to it. It's $14 US, which you pay online. It's cheap. I have a fee, which I charge when I'm processing that. But I would advise persons to do it in advance of buying their tickets.
Oh, so
before
the ticket.
Right, because you never know.
That makes sense, actually. You won't be out unnecessary cash, right? Because you might be holding a ticket that you can't
all
use.
the tickets are non-refundable now, so well, most of them.
Imagine that. Wow.
Yes.
Credits.
All right, so in addition to ESTA, when we're talking about ESTA, the ESTA that is, are there similar systems, say, for French or Canadian visas?
That's the same form for persons with passports from France. There's also a form called the ETA, which is for Canadian citizens. If they're going via the US, they would fill out that. Then there's a form called the ArriveCAN, which Canada just introduced since COVID. You have to fill out that before entering Canada. So it asks you information about your COVID vaccinations, your name, where you're going to stay, things like that. So most of the countries are using forms before you enter their country. So it's kind of wise to be able to find out, because sometimes you have a delay in receiving a response because you have to get an approval. So I would advise persons, if they're traveling, always make sure that you have the documents for the trip, the documents for the country you're going to, the documents for the country you're transiting through. When going through UK, you had a form that you had to fill out, and that form was called the passenger locator form. They've done away with it, but we had so many problems when at the airport with persons who came, especially elderly persons who didn't have that form, and we had to go online and kind of assist them in filling it out and stuff like that. So it's always wise, even though you may feel I can go online and book. It's always wise to always find out what you need for the country. Don't just take it for granted.
Yeah, that's
Don't
exactly
assume.
where you come in.
Yes.
So, I lost my train of thought on my question. It was a follow-up to, for the US visa and the Canadian visa, does one have to travel to get them, or can we send the passports away?
For the US visa, a renewal, you don't have to travel. The renewal is for persons whose visa expired 4 years ago, between 4 years and now.
Okay.
For the Barbados visa, you have to do biometrics. Biometrics is only done in Barbados and St. Lucia for us. Or you can do it in a US port, but I wouldn't advise someone to just go there just for that.
Okay.
But persons who need the Canadian visa, they must travel and do biometrics, where they do the fingerprinting. It just takes like 5-10 minutes.
So you must travel for the Canadian visa,
you
but
have
you
to
don't
do that.
have to go travel for the US visa. No.
If it has expired between 4 years and now.
No, okay. So if it's expired 5 years or 10 years.
5 years, you have to
must
go for an interview.
Okay.
Persons over 14 years have to go for an interview. Under 80 have to go for an interview. So once you made your 80th birthday, or if you're under 14, you don't have to go. You can mail it in. But for children, one of the parents must have a visa, because heaven forbid, if something happens to the child while there, you'll need someone to be able to go. So it's difficult for someone to get a visa for a child without one of the parents having the visa.
Maybe one more question before you ask yours. How difficult it is for one to get an appointment now? Because I've been hearing around that it's hard. People have to wait until 2024.
That's correct.
That's
correct. But there's a saving grace where they open up. Sometimes they come on and they open up dates before.
Okay.
For instance, I had dates open up in April, so I managed to get about 8 people I had.
Yeah, nice.
And they had some in May. I had about 8 people. So I just set it for whatever they have available, and then I would go keep checking periodically and see if anything open. Once it opens up, I'll call the person and let them know, hey, you have a date open. Would you like to go? Most of them are willing, because nobody wants to wait till 2024
Exactly.
April, and that's the next available date right now.
Wow, 2 years from now.
Yes.
Oh, there's something called staycations. You know. Just putting that out there. All right, so Karen, what are some of the common misconceptions that people might have about travel in general and even your business?
Well, as I said before, assuming that you have everything ready for your trip. And I want to give a plug for travel agents. Travel agents, even though you may feel I can go online and do everything, I don't have to pay the service fee, the travel agents really earn their money, especially when things happen. For instance, when they had a Hurricane Irma and Maria, we had persons calling trying to get their flight changed, but if I didn't book it initially, I wouldn't be able to make a change because I don't have access to that reservation. Whereas the persons who book with me, once they call me, I was able to go on, just change their reservation, get American ReCD ticket, and they were on their way. They just make a phone call, tell me, Karen, I want to come back on the 5th. Change it for me.
No problem.
No problem, but when you booked it online, you have to stay on hold sometimes for hours, this music playing in your ear. And I mean, you're just sitting there waiting for them to answer, and then they would tell you, you know, it takes a while before you're able to get anything done. So the travel agent is really important, and people have this misconception that it's not necessary in this day and age, but it's even more important, especially since COVID. During COVID, while we had the curfew and the shutdowns, I was also working from home. That's before I started my business. I was working from home, and I had persons trying to get to some of the neighboring islands, and you had so many forms. Every island had a form that you had to fill out, and it was really even frustrating for me, but you know, it was my job. So I learned how to fill out the Jamaica form, I filled out form for Guyana, I filled out form for St. Vincent, you know, and it was really a learning experience.
So if someone's interested in your services, Karen, how can they contact you? You can look in that camera and let us know.
They can contact me by calling 661-5060, or they can email me at warnersserviceskn@gmail.com.